Our first speaker is Shannon Schaller from Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Shannon is a wildlife officer and terrestrial biologist in the Northeast region who began her career in 2002 as an officer in the Hot Sulphur Springs area. She will be discussing the regulations and mandatory check requirements for your hunt. Please welcome Shannon Schaller.
Good morning. Congratulations, everybody in this room. That's a pretty exciting time to be here today, and hopefully this is just the start of what is one of the most memorable things that you guys do in your lifetime. So today I'm going to cover the laws and regs as they relate to sheep and goat. So some of the stuff I'll cover is stuff that applies to other big game hunting, and then the stuff that more specifically applies to sheep and goat. So, I mean, I'm a firm believer in order for you to have a successful hunt, that involves a lot of planning, a lot of backup planning, and then also that everything goes smoothly from a legal standpoint and then hopefully from a harvest standpoint. So I'll run through this, and then hopefully at the end we have some time for questions. But there are a lot of people in this building today, like Jason said, that have a ton of experience. Either they've hunted sheep and goats themselves, or they've worked there in an area where they have an immense amount of knowledge about sheep and goats. And definitely take this time to get that one-on-one questioning done, or anything that you have. And then also just make contacts with people here so that you have phone numbers in your hip pocket as you go out on your hunt. So with that, we'll begin. So like I said, we'll do some of the sheep and goat regulations that are specific to you so that you can complete what is hopefully a successful hunt. And then I have some pictures in here, and I'll tell you where everything is, just so you can have some sort of eye candy to go with laws and regulations. So these are Waterton Bighorn sheep. And is anyone in here from the S42 hunt code? Nope. Oh, great. Perfect. All right. Those are S42 sheep. Okay, like I said, standard laws that apply to other big game also apply to sheep and goat. And some of the laws that we have protect people, so they're based on safety. And then the other laws that we have are there to protect wildlife. And one of the big ones there that is in place to protect people and has to do with safety is not having a loaded firearm in your motor vehicle. And if you've ever hunted in Colorado, I know some of you guys are from out of state, so it's really important to pay attention to our Colorado laws. But having a firearm loaded in a motor vehicle, so nothing can be in the chamber. So any motor vehicle, any long gun, nothing in the chamber. And I'll tell you, a lot of these laws, just like if you were speeding, there's officer discretion. There are a lot of laws that sometimes officer discretion, you may or may not get a ticket in Colorado, but I can tell you every time you show up with a loaded firearm in Colorado, you'll definitely get a ticket, because that's just one that's there to protect you and to protect people around you. So the reason it's a big deal kind of for like sheep and goat hunting is that a lot of times you're going to get back to your truck after a hunt with like this, and you're going to be exhausted. It'll be the hardest thing potentially that you've ever done. And it's easy to get complacent when you're tired and flub up on things. And so just like a long day of pheasant hunting or elk hunting or whatever, check that gun before you get in. And then this one's probably more applicable to sheep and goats, and that's relates to ATVs and OHVs. And that if you have a long gun on OHVs or ATVs, it has to be totally unloaded, so nothing in the magazine, and it has to be in a hard or soft case. So it's a safety thing, it's a fair chase thing, and I mean, a lot of sheep and goat stuff, most likely you're not going to have a car or a truck close by just because of where they live, but an OHV might be something to use. So remember that. And then not only is it a fair chase thing and a safety thing, it's also, it helps you protect your firearm in case it's muddy or whatever. You don't want your gun to get all gummed up when it goes time to shoot, and you don't want your scope all gummed up. Okay, so this is one that we get kind of frequently, because of where these animals live, people would like an extra advantage to be able to take a look up at 13,000 feet rather than hike all the way up there. So with that, you cannot hunt within 48 hours after using aircraft, so an airplane or a helicopter, to locate game. And I realize that's a regulation that applies to people that have a little bit more money in their pocket, because not everybody can pay a helicopter to go look. But it's worth to mention. Artificial light, I mean, obviously hunting hours apply to sheep and goat just the same way that they do in deer and elk. So no artificial light. And then this one's kind of a big one as far as it relates to sheep and goat. Fail to track and kill wounded animals. And because you're more likely to be hunting at higher elevation, and sometimes you may be shooting across a little bit of a canyon or a steep draw, it's still your responsibility, if you take a shot, to follow up on that shot. And I know it can be a long ways down and then back up, and it's very strenuous, or you saw them, they went over the ridge, and now I don't know where they're at, and it's going to take a while to get there. But this law still applies to sheep and goat, because these animals are tough. Sheep and goats don't just drop like a box of rocks like you would hope usually. I mean, their lungs are huge. They're made to live at high elevations. So sometimes you hit them and they'll walk off, especially if you're doing, archery or whatever. They'll walk off and you may not think you hit them. So something that helps is hopefully you're going to have somebody with you, and somebody with you that has binoculars that can set up and watch when you take a shot, watch the animal's behavior, and then watch where they go. So a lot of it is knowing the animal's behavior. If you've learned this group of animals, where do they go after they're spooked or whatever? If you've spent your time scouting, hopefully that will help you when you go to take that shot, and hopefully everything works. But just remember that's a tough one in the location, but it still applies to sheep and goats. And then this is another one that is important to emphasize with sheep and goats, is that sometimes people draw a sheep and goat license and they didn't necessarily draw it just to eat the meat. They want the horns and they want the trophy, which is great, but it's important to remember that all of the same laws apply to sheep and goat hunting as far as what the minimum amount of meat is to take out. So that's the 4 quarters, and then the back straps in the loins. And then what I'll tell you is just, like with everything with sheep and goats, it's like plan ahead what you're going to do. I mean, if you're going to take a shot that's 5 miles away from your camp 20 minutes before dark, which is kind of what happens a lot of times, and it's what happened to me, is just plan ahead. Is there a place where I can hang the meat if I can't come back, or if I can't get it all, or if I go in with somebody, do they have a backpack capable and can help me pack all of it out? So just plan ahead so that you don't get yourself in a situation where it's either a human safety thing because you're packing this animal out. I'll tell you, after hunting many, many days, either sheep or goat or anything high elevation like this, or I guess it'd be deer and elk too, your legs are like sewing machines, and then you get this adrenaline rush when you finally kill the animal, and then now you have to pack it out, and it's dark out. I mean, it can be a dangerous situation depending on the weather or whatever. So just plan ahead. I mean, how are you going to get it out? How many loads? Is it possible to get it out? If I shoot this animal right here, is it going to drop into the bottom of this gully, do a death plunge which some of these animals do? And will I have any meat left? And I was really, in my household, we've had both sheep and goat from a harvest, and I was really happy with both animals. I learned to cook them different ways just because they're different kinds of meat. But anyone who tells you that they're not worth eating either is really lazy or doesn't value the animal as a game animal, or wasn't able to take it to a processor. So just make sure you plan ahead so that you can enjoy every part of the animal, not just the trophy parts. And this one's not as applicable to sheep and goats, but shoot from or across onto a road. And then that's a G10 billy right there, up by Quandary, actually. And then this is kind of a newer regulation that we have to cover now, is that you're not allowed to use drones for any kind of hunting whatsoever. So that's just kind of a all-inclusive, any kind of hunting, not allowed to use drones at all. And then hunting over bait. A big one on this is it doesn't matter who placed the bait or what have you, you're not allowed to hunt over bait. And again, some of these herds in the state are drawn toward people because they've been baited by either a bag of Doritos in their car or salt from, somebody going to the bathroom or an outhouse or whatever. And just keep in mind that it's illegal to hunt over bait whether you placed it or somebody else did place it. And I realize I'm going over all of these, don't do this and don't do that, and I don't want it to be a negative experience. I just know that it's important for me to cover all of it, because as you get out there and your situation changes and you're presenting with different opportunities, we want you to have everything be safe and successful and not have any issues with something that could get you tripped up. Evidence of sex naturally attached. So same laws that apply to deer and elk. Just make sure whether you bone out one of those hindquarters or whether you take it out whole, that you leave evidence of sex naturally attached to the meat. And that applies to either sex licenses as well. So you have to have, if you kill a billy, you have to have evidence of sex, and the same thing with a nanny. And then licenses voided immediately at the site of kill. Or if you're going to pack the animal out and bring it back to your truck, you can put the carcass tag on there, because we wouldn't want you to lose the carcass tag on the animal. Just remember, after you get your animal down, and it's the most thrilling thing and everyone's really excited, just remember to get that license out, tear it, that says that I'm done hunting, you sign it. If you're going to be packing the animal out a ways, you can throw that carcass tag in your pocket and then put it on the animal when you get back to your tent or get back to the vehicle. And then the other thing I just kind of harp on this one is the carcass tag is a carcass tag, not a head tag. So the easiest thing to do with a carcass tag is to put it on the quarter with the evidence of sex. That way, if you get contacted by an officer in the field, they can say, let's see your carcass tag and let me see your evidence of sex, and it's all right there in one spot. So let's get into some stuff that's more specific to sheep and goats. So there's no requirement for any season in sheep and goat to wear hunter orange or hunter pink in the field. So you can wear camouflage, or you can wear hunter orange if you want, or you can wear pink, whatever you want. You don't have to wear any of that. And then this is the big one as it applies to sheep and goat hunting, that each one of you, when you drew your license, got a pink or a blue sheet that is your mandatory check form. And each one of you in this room that has one of those forms must turn that form in at least or within 30 days of the end of your season, and that's regardless of if you harvested or not. And so if you harvested, you're going to take your animal to get checked, and your form's going to get filled out, and it's going to get turned in, and that'll be really easy for you. But where people sometimes get into a snag on this is that if you didn't harvest at all because one, let's say a family emergency comes up and you never got a chance to go hunting, or work comes up and you aren't able to go hunting, you still need to fill out that form and turn it in. Even if you go hunting 2 or 3 days and you did not harvest, we need that form. And then where we kind of have the hammer on this is if you don't turn in that form within 30 days of the end of your season, you're not allowed to apply for that species again in the following year's draw. And when you drew your license, you were already flagged in the system as needing to have turned in a form. And so I can't emphasize enough that the forms are really important because we gather information on the herds, but even if you didn't harvest or you went hunting and you didn't harvest, that we need that form. And I can see Mary about ready to say something. Mary's our gatekeeper for all of this biological information as it applies to sheep and goats. And Mary, what did you want to add? Thank you for asking that, because I thought about that when I was doing this presentation and then I forgot about it again. So that's a great question. Yeah, we are lucky enough to have radio collars on some of the sheep and goat herds around the state. And please feel free to harvest any animal with a radio collar on them, because a lot of times we're looking at harvest rates in animals. But if you do harvest one, there should be a phone number of the nearest office and or the biologist's name associated with that study. And then please bring it with you when you check your animal. So yes, thank you. That's a great question. But don't feel like you can't shoot one with a radio collar on it. But if there's one right next to it that's just as big, maybe you want to shoot the one without a radio collar. Just saying, just my little plug. Because they take a lot of money to put those on. But that's a great question, and yeah, please just bring it with you. And then just know that you may get a follow-up phone call from the biologist or even the DWM that just asks you some more specific questions, because those radio collars are on there to learn, habitat usage, distribution, and it might be disease related as far as, they want to know more about the animal body. So just be prepared with a follow-up question and maybe some more detailed information than just the mandatory form. So thanks for asking that. So here's just an example of what these forms look like. And like Mary said, those forms capture really important information as it relates to success rates. So everything on there is we really look at these forms and we use them to manage these herds as far as success rates go, the number of days hunted, the number of animals you saw, in a group, and then what the classification, so the breakdown of ewes and rams and lambs is really important for us. I mean, a lot of times you guys become our eyes and ears out there as far as seeing what the herds are doing, and you're kind of, Mary used the words, indoctrined as a biologist in the field for us. So we use the data on these sheets. So as much as you can, please be descriptive, because we use it in setting future licenses. We would love to have this room filled with people who, it doesn't take 20 years to draw, but we just don't have enough animals. But the more we know about them and learn about them, hopefully that gives us opportunities to increase herd performance, and these forms become really important. So the thing to remember is that it's on you to kind of know this, but we'll help kind of guide you through the answers. And if you don't harvest, if you can give us comments about why you didn't harvest, those are also helpful for us. Each year when we go into setting licenses for the next year, we really look at those, why they did not harvest, and try to get a better understanding to improve success. And then just one thing I'll say, from the officer's standpoint, is that when you sign this form, you're attesting that everything on it is true and correct. So if you happen to have a mistake out in the field, my advice to you is to call and tell the officer what happened and work through it that way, because if you don't and you sign this form, this is now a legal document that you are signing that everything is true and correct. So it's always easier if you have a mistake in the field, and mistakes happen, that you let us know so that we can work through it, and it's a much easier situation. Sheep and goat regulations or even statutes come with some pretty significant fines, and that's because it's such a coveted thing and we want to provide that opportunity to more people. So please don't be on the receiving end of finding out something the hard way, that heavy fines can be associated with it. And hopefully when you're turning this form in, it's one of the coolest things ever and you're excited to tell everyone everything about your hunt. Oops, let me go back one. Okay, the other thing I'll say is just plan some time into your mandatory check, especially if you come on a Monday after a season opened on a Saturday. The office will be busy, and if it's during the September timeframe when bear hunters are coming in as well, some of the bigger offices can be packed. So a couple of things: plan ahead. Know your taxidermists in advance if that's what your plans are to do with your animal, so that you have them on the hook for when you've harvested. Know the local officer's name of the unit that you're hunting in. So one, you can call and ask questions. If you run into something up there, you can report it to them, or if you just need help with something. And then 3, know the office that you plan to take your animal into, so that you know the hours of the office and you know where it's at and what they can do. Sometimes officers will check your animal in the field, and so it's worth it to know in advance. Like, I called Jason, and he's going to meet me up, at the trailhead by Brainerd Lake, and he's going to check my animal, and that's going to save me a trip down into the office. But sometimes either officers can't because they're not around, or it's just not going to work with them because they're out checking hunters. But if you plan all that in advance, it will save you time. And then also, some of these seasons can be really warm, and in order to preserve your meat, you want to have all of this planned out. You want to preserve your cape. So if you're going to do a shoulder mount or a full body mount or whatever, So you'll just hear me emphasize plan, plan, plan ahead so that nothing becomes an emergency that you can't deal with later on. And then just plan when you get to the offices. If you come to the Denver office on a Monday sometimes, it will take you an hour to even get to the front of the line. And then your check will take you probably 25, 35 minutes, depending on what animal you have and how busy they are. So just plan it into your work schedule or whatever you're doing, that it actually does take some time. Sheep and goat regulations, again, all rams must be a half curl or greater, and then ewes must be 5 inches or length. A reminder, if you kill a ewe on a ewe license, you still have to bring it in for a check with the form. Even though it doesn't get a plug like a ram, all ram or ewes have to be checked. And we're measuring horn length, and we're aging that ewe, and that again goes into data that helps us manage wildlife. The difference with goats is that there's not a length associated with horns in goats, but what's a little more important for you, and because a lot of goat licenses are either sex, there are some nanny only, so obviously you want to know what a nanny is, but for the either sex licenses, just in order to know what you want to select for it in your harvest, know how to differentiate males and females. And if you go to our website, there's an identification guide that helps you learn how to identify males from females. And then there's also a quiz that will help you kind of burn it into your brain so that when you're out there, you know the difference between males and females. Okay, so we already covered this. The big one on this, though, is that you must personally present your animal to be checked, whether it's an officer in the field or whether it's at an office. So you need to bring in the skull intact with your form and your license to be checked at the office. And so this is just a picture of what the plug looks like. I know I've experienced some people having anxiety about getting this plug in their ram horns because it's a once in a lifetime pretty much. And now all of a sudden someone's putting a drill in the back of the horn. But we pick, it's one side or the other, and it's very, it's inconspicuous really. Like this, it's a little plug, but it's numbered so that we can say that this was a legally harvested ram. If you know in advance how you would like to position your animal on the wall, either with a shoulder mount or full body mount, and how you're having the head turned, we can put that plug wherever you indicate, and you might want to ask your taxidermist in advance. The only thing we have to do is we have to put the plug far enough down the horn that it's not hitting the core of the horns. But other than that, we try to find like a little divot or something that makes it very inconspicuous. But think of it as like a medal or trophy or something, because after, not only is the animal your trophy, that plug is also your congratulations, you got one. But it does go in all bighorn rams. And that's a way for us to account and to track and to monitor and help us better manage wildlife. And then you'll get pictures taken of your ram as well. So you'll get a front, a left, and a right, because their horns aren't always the same length. And then occasionally you'll get the back of your animal picture taken. Okay, this is a big one. Now that you're all in this room, if you harvest an animal, you have to wait 5 years to be able to apply for that animal again. And it's the longest 5 years of your life, trust me. I drew in 2014, and every year I'm like, am I still not able to apply again? And again, I'm not. But it's also a reward, and it's our way of spreading out the demand for these licenses, because there obviously aren't enough licenses for the amount of demand, and it's our way to hopefully, as much as we can, more equitably distribute our licenses. So that 5-year wait applies to a harvest of a sheep or a goat. Although on a ram license, you can still apply for a ewe license, but you cannot accrue any preference points. And then the other thing I'll throw out there is auction raffle licenses are on top of, you don't have to wait the 5 years to buy an auction or raffle license for these species if in fact you harvest. I'll just make a plug for the auction raffle stuff, because a lot of our callers that go on sheep and goats in this state were paid for auction and raffle dollars. So if you have the opportunity to attend one of the different groups' banquets, and you have the opportunity to buy an auction license or even a raffle license, I one, it's a great opportunity to get to hunt these when you're waiting to draw or you've already drawn and harvested. But two, that money goes back into wildlife projects that help us better manage these species. And then this is just my little plug. That's my goat that I killed in 2014 in G10. And all of my, like, have a backup plan, you're gonna hunt really hard and then you're gonna feel like you wanna die, happened to me after I killed mine, because it was on a rock slope that went for like 1.5 miles, and I packed it out from 9 p.m. till 2 a.m. And at that very moment I got back to camp, I thought to myself, if they gave me another goat license, I wouldn't take it. And now I'm ready for one. But right away, it was the hardest thing I had ever done. So desert bighorns, ram hunters they're done for the remainder of their life. As you know, or if you don't know, with desert bighorns, it's a complete lottery system. So there are no preference points associated with deserts. So after you draw on your bighorn ram and you harvest it, you can jump into the desert pool with everybody else and cross your fingers and hope you're the lucky one each one year. This is kind of important, as the refund policy changed in 2017. So as soon as hopefully everybody in here is able to go, you have time off, it's great, no family emergencies, but if in fact you are not able to go hunting, please turn in that license as soon as possible and fill out your form. But turn in your license as soon as possible, because within 30 days of the start of your season, you're no longer able to turn in your license. And if you want to turn in your license, you want to be able to get your preference points back. So if in fact you can't go for whatever reason, please turn it in. And one, we can get that license back into the system and redistribute that license so that it doesn't go unfilled. So where can you learn all of this great information? Because I know most of you already know it, but just know that you have access to biologists and officers in the state. Everybody wants to help you get your animal. Like, we're excited for you. We set these license numbers in anticipation of having harvest. You know, we want you to get one. So call and talk to people. Get in on sheep and goat counts in your unit and give yourself an excuse to learn the area better. Go online, and we have online brochures. You know, everybody knows that we have the cool, pretty paper brochures, but go online and look at some of the cool stuff we have of the interactive brochures. That's a good source of information. And then get out and enjoy yourself, and good luck, and hopefully this is the most wonderful summer you've ever had, because you're in the Alpine and away from, you'll see some people, but away from a lot of people, and I hope that you have a good, safe hunt, because this truly, for almost everybody in here, this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and we really encourage you to be safe, and good luck to everybody out there.